conference at the Midland Horseshoe Arena 2024. I am incredibly pleased to have with me Abik right now. And Abik, we had met a little bit earlier, and you just kind of started telling me a little bit about your business and what you guys do. Could you
That's
explain
right.
to the folks out there what's going on?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm with Enerflex Water Solutions. Enerflex as a whole, we are a public company. We have about 5,000 employees globally. And in terms of the verticals that we play in, we have energy transition, we have natural gas compression and treatment, we have power generation, and then I'm with their water solutions team. So, and what the water solutions team, we have our own, we have our patented technology that helps remove oil, suspended solids, as well as iron as well. And typically that water is used for recycling, reuse, for pressure maintenance, or sometimes even disposal. And then we have primary, secondary, and tertiary equipment that enables us to treat the water.
So it sounds like you're coming with a full suite of solutions for a variety, because as we all know, all water is different.
Correct.
When you go to treat it, so
Yep.
there is a big difference about that.
Yep.
Just as a quick example, what are some of the examples of how you get rid of iron?
Yeah. So with iron, what we do is we precipitate the dissolved iron using peroxide. Now, if the pH is already where it needs to be, then we would not need to use sodium hydroxide, or else you would need to add in that sodium hydroxide. So what we do is we remove the iron in our flotation unit, right? So we have a unit that incorporates microbubble flotation.
So that's a DAF.
It's slightly different than the DAF.
Okay.
So
That's interesting.
in DAFs, there's a few differences. So in DAFs, the bubbles that are generated are not microbubbles, right? So
Okay.
in our solution, we generate microbubbles typically in the range of 5 to 50 microns in size. Okay. So that's microbubbles, as opposed to typically 50 microns or greater is where the DAFs and IGFs are.
Okay.
So the bubble side is one. The second thing is also our internal design of our unit is quite different than a DAF is. So it kind of avoids like short circuiting, and we use, I guess, the full residence time of our tank. So if it's 8 minutes, it's actually an 8-minute tank for that specific solution. So going back to your question, so we incorporate microbubble flotation in this tank-based solutions, and really what happens is once the iron is precipitated, with the microbubbles, you know how we do remove the oil, it basically rises and gets skimmed off. Similar concept is when the iron precipitate, it forms a solid particle at that point. And with the microbubbles, what happens is once, like how the oil rises, we also have then at that time have oil coated iron particles or iron particles in general, and the microbubbles helps alleviate and rise those solid particles, iron particles, and then it just gets skimmed off.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So you're taking those solids, and instead of sinking them, you're actually floating them out. So,
Correct.
okay. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And so with all the different services that you have, what do you see as some of the big things that are coming up for next year?
Yeah, so I think there's definitely a lot of talk on beneficial reuse. So I think those are, you kind of have to always keep a pulse on what that looks like, and that means that could mean very different things in different markets. Like in the Middle East, they have different use cases than perhaps over here. I know we're talking about surface disposal here, if that makes sense, from being able to treat the water, and then logistically, if you could just dispose on the surface, great. Middle East, there's like applications where they're looking at date farming, for example. So it depends on the nature of what they're trying to do with the water, but of course it has to make commercial sense. Where is the commercial viability of that? I know there's lithium extraction. There's obviously produced water to hydrogen, which is also a topic, but I still think we're quite far away from a commercial scale of being commercially viable. So the point is definitely keeping an eye on regulations. What are those regulation drivers? What are the subsidies? Maybe there's some government subsidies that we got to look out for. So keeping a pulse on that, as well as where technology is heading. And we always, our company is, especially the water solutions team, we're very technology focused. We are always reinvesting in R&D. So even though we do have commercial scale technology that's been around for over 25 years, we're constantly developing new and innovative ways to do and treat produced water. We're looking at different filtration methodologies. We're looking at how do we even tweak flotation and do it slightly differently, and maybe in high pressure scenario flotation scenarios. So yeah, so I think technology is going to be key, but then also looking at the regulatory drivers in the market as a whole and seeing that product market fit and commercial viability of it.
Right, because again, ultimately, if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. And
Correct.
yes, and so no, that's really fascinating, and I'm very excited that you've been able to participate here at the
Yep.
Produced Water Society conference this year, and to
Mhm.
be able to highlight what you guys are
Yep.
doing. Have you been able to have you have you been able to meet some other colleagues in your area? Have you been able to kind of get together,
Yeah.
discuss what's going on?
Yeah, for
What's
sure.
the conference mean to you?
Yeah, the conference is definitely, I mean, networking, I mean, that word means different things to different people, but really over here is you're sharing the knowledge, and you're basically gaining knowledge and sharing knowledge. And I think it's important from that perspective. And then even just from a technology side, there's always something I take back home, like, oh, this is a different way of thinking about it, right? So even right now, I was talking to a company that they were looking at desal, but in a very different way of desal, using a chemical-based desalination, which I wasn't familiar with. So that was interesting. And then my mind gets racing. I'm like, hey,
Sure.
so how do we look at a partnership and doing a pilot? But hey, we have the front end side of this, right? We have all the primary, secondary, and tertiary, but then you have a back end polishing stage of a desalination, which is, and the economics was that was conveyed to me is very promising. So you look at partnerships, you look at different applications, and you try to see how there's that 1 + 1 = 3 kind of solution. So yeah, the conference brings that. And then just the flavor of also the market, where the market's heading to. I think you get a technology side of it, but you also get, you heard some of the talks early on, the keynote speaking, and what Select was saying, you get a pulse on where the market's heading. And that's important, right? Because then that'll give you more of a wider perspective on how we should position ourselves going forward as well.
Brilliant. No, you're right. In a conference like this is very important, because you say it kind of brings everybody together in a way where you can see the crossroads and see the intersections already happening, right? Because you have some companies where they've had initiatives for a couple of years.
Sure.
Okay, where are they with that?
Yeah.
Are they going to continue because there was a robust market? Are they going to discontinue?
Yeah.
So you get to find that out. And I think it's also kind of funny, like you're talking about, like Select was speaking earlier.
Yeah.
There's explicit and implicit. Like
Sure.
explicitly, we're all competitors because we're all trying to do the job. But somehow that's what it looks like on the outside, maybe to the rest of the world. Right?
Sure.
We're all competing for the work, which is true.
Yeah.
But implicitly,
Yeah.
behind the scenes, in reality,
Sure.
at conferences like this, you see we're all partners.
We are.
We're all partners in
Yeah.
trying to find solutions.
That's right. And I think sometimes when you see all these partnerships and solutions, you're almost trying to find how you can kind of merge. Like, giving you an example, sometimes what happens is you see a partner try to solve a very specific application, right? And when that's the case, you try to see is that, hey, is there a way that we can also complement that and use it for a separate application? And that happened to me itself at this conference. So those are things which are invaluable, I would say. Like if you could do all the Google searches in the world and you can't get that level of engagement or that
Right.
level of technical knowledge through the discussions that we have in a conference like this.
Right. No, I think that without a doubt, you're absolutely right. There is ultimately, even though the internet is fantastic, we all carry all the world's knowledge in our hands, essentially.
Sure.
There is no substitute for being at a specific conference like this with people who care intimately about the issues that you care about.
Absolutely.
So I thank you very much for being here. I thank you very much for coming on the show and talking a little bit.
Absolutely.
Why don't you look into the camera, tell your boss your name,
All right.
and so that way he knows that you're busy working, right?
Absolutely.
And let everybody know what you're doing and how they can find you.
For sure. Abik Banerjee. So I work with Enerflex Water Solutions. You can find me on LinkedIn. Abik Banerjee, ABHEEK BANERJEE. So thanks so much, Christian. Really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, brother. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you later.
Yeah, appreciate
Take care. Thank you. And cut.